Most of us grew up with one very specific story about stepmothers. She enters the child's life and is probably the villain. She is cold, jealous, selfish, standing in the way of the child's happiness. And as adults, we know that this is just a fairy tale. But when you're raising children in a blended family, you start to notice these stories differently. Children in families whose dynamics are shifting are already processing so much. They're probably already wondering, does loving one person mean I'm betraying someone else? And if the story they keep hearing says a stepmother enters and something bad happens, I think that matters. The wicked stepmother trope shows up a lot more often than just the one fairy tale we're probably all thinking of. And once you start to notice it, you can't unsee it. Stories give children a framework. They help them understand what to expect next. And I want to offer them a new narrative that makes room for a different kind of happily ever after. So today I want to talk about why I wrote The Princess and the Not-So-Wicked Stepmother. I'm Deanna, a mom and a stepmom, and if you've been here for a while, you know this channel is usually where I talk about blended family life and all the moving pieces. For over a year, I've been working on a companion piece, a children's book, so that I can offer them direct resources as well. The channel is for adults, navigating all the complex family dynamics with a little more clarity and compassion. And the book is for children, living inside a story they may not fully be able to understand. I'm very excited to bring the two together. When I became a stepmom, I started paying closer attention to just how often the new stepmother is cast as the problem. And it's actually a really interesting thing to explore culturally, and I may actually do a whole episode on that at another time. But when you start to notice it, the theme is the original family is lost, and the new woman in the story is a threat. And there's a lot to unpack there that has nothing to do with the actual role of stepmother. These stories are exploring mortality and cultural norms about women and women's relationship to each other. In the time that many of these stories were written, many more women died in childbirth, and so the role of the stepmother was quite different. So I'm not saying we need to cancel all the old fairy tales. I just think there's room for new ones. I have always been a storyteller, and I love that stories can spark curiosity and nurture empathy. They can give us a way into someone else's perspective. They can hold up a mirror to reflect on common themes. And for children, this can be especially valuable because sometimes the real-life conversations are too hard and the concepts are too abstract. So when one version of the story becomes the only version and children in real blended families hear over and over that stepmothers are wicked, that mistrust can run deep. The role itself is treated as suspicious before a person even has a chance to become known. And this first became really obvious to me when I was a brand new stepmom volunteering at my stepson's preschool. And I was handing out snacks and a little boy asked me if I was his mom. And I said, "Oh no, I'm his stepmom." And the kid froze and ran away from me. And I realized that this stepmother trope impacts all children, not only the ones in blended families. And ever since that happened, I've wanted to write a story that shows when someone new enters a family, someone else's love doesn't disappear. The stepmother isn't the villain of the story, but she's not the hero either. The child is at the center of the story and is discovering that love can expand to make room for a whole growing family. The Princess and the Not-So-Wicked Stepmother is about Princess Sophie. She has a loving mother and father and lives in 2 castles. So when a stepmother enters her life, she wonders what will change, because of course she has heard the stories. Aren't stepmothers supposed to be wicked? And I loved using a fairy tale world to explore this because fairy tales are exactly where many of those old ideas came from. So with the book, I take that familiar story and gently turn it. What if the stepmother isn't wicked? The child is allowed to be unsure. There's room for her fears. The mother's love is still secure, and so is the father's. A new relationship can develop without erasing the existing ones. There's room for love to grow, and that was at the heart of it for me. I truly believe children deserve a story that shows them they don't have to choose sides in order to belong. Because blended family life is complicated, and whether or not we want to admit it, that is sometimes the message they might be getting. The grown-ups in blended families are human and doing their best, and sometimes making mistakes. And sometimes the children are receiving a message that they're supposed to choose sides. They might also be feeling pressure to arrive at emotional comfort faster than they're ready to. And as uncomfortable as it is to consider how children may be internalizing this, it doesn't make the parents the villain either. Everyone is doing their best here, and this was no one's plan A. It's natural to want reassurance that our choices aren't negatively impacting children. It's normal for a step-parent to want the kid to like us and not feel like our very presence in this family is completely unwanted. It's totally normal for all the adults to just want to move past this icky part where the parents split up. It totally makes sense for the adults to want to just move forward. And as I've said before, in my lived experience, marriages ending and relationships changing sometimes is the right thing. But children need room to process that. They need permission to be unsure. They need to know they're not being asked to perform happiness for their parents. They need to know they can love their mom without rejecting their stepmom, that they can be happy in 2 different houses. They need to be reminded that love is not a competition. And that is one of the biggest themes of this story, that love does not have to compete with love. My hope is this story can be a tool, a way in to help children identify and process some of what they might be feeling. Because kids are not going to want to sit down and have a big discussion about divorce and remarriage. But a story gives the adults and kids a shared language. You can talk about Princess Sophie and Lady Genevieve, and maybe they'll relate to it. Or maybe they'll just like the flying pig. I also hope Princess Sophie's journey can help remind us to resist the urge to rush a child's timeline. A kid doesn't have to feel instantly comfortable with a new family for the family to be moving in a healthy direction. Curiosity can be a step. Neutrality can be a step. Feeling safe enough to ask complicated questions can be a step. And I didn't plan this, but the steps to step family thing, there's something to that. So if it takes more steps to your step family than you planned on, that's okay. I want everyone here to know that it's all normal. It's all okay. There is no formula for this. There's no roadmap. We're all building something new. And you're all part of what I'm building here with the Not-So-Wicked Stepmother, a community for the adults, and Aurora Grove, resources for kids, where we can all embrace the fact that families are unique and different and complicated, whether they're blended or not. There's always room for more love. I want children to know they can be loved by more than one person in more than one home without having to divide their heart into pieces. And I want parents to know they're not alone. And I want us all to know that even if your family looks a little different than planned, it's not broken. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is The Princess and the Not-So-Wicked Stepmother. It is available now, and I'll link it below. And if you're still here and you have not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I'll see you next time.